Have you ever stopped to think about how something real, something that actually walked the earth, can turn into a legend? I'm not talking about physical changes, but a transformation that happens entirely inside our heads. We're about to dive into that strange, powerful process, how the mind takes what was and turns it into something that never was, but will be remembered forever.
You know, it all starts with this incredible observation from a butterfly. It looks around and realizes, hey, maybe the dinosaurs never really left. Maybe they just shapeshifted. Not their bones, not their bodies, but our idea of them. They were being reborn as dragons, a transformation happening purely in the collective imagination.
So that's the big question, right? How does the mind actually pull this off? Where do you even draw the line between a fossil and a fantasy? Let's follow this idea, this thread, through the eyes of a whole bunch of creatures, some real, some not so real, and see what we can figure out. So first up, this whole idea of a psychological transformation. We're going to start right where the butterfly did, with its strange little inquiry, and see just how deep this rabbit hole goes. But before we can really get myth, we have to understand reality. So next, we're looking at the pride of the real. We're talking about the creatures who live and die by what's physically in front of them. For these creatures, life is pretty straightforward. Might makes right. Power comes from your size, from your strength. In their world, there is absolutely no room for fuzzy ideas like legends. All that matters is the hard, cold reality of what you can physically crush. And the dinosaur is the perfect poster child for this. It sees itself as the absolute peak of physical existence. To the dinosaur, the idea of getting smaller is just nonsensical. The only threat out there is something even bigger. It's a simple, and you have to admit, an incredibly solid worldview. And the pterodactyl is right there with him, just from up in the sky. It looks at any kind of change that doesn't fit its current dominant design and just scoffs. Feathers? What good are those? Why would you ever change when you're already the king of your domain? This is a reality that's all about what works, right here, right now. Okay, so we've seen the purely physical. Now let's flip the script and explore the template of myth. How does a legend actually get built in the first place?
And a dove of all creatures is the one who gives us a clue. It suggests that deep down in all of our minds, there's a kind of template, a pattern. And when lots and lots of people have that same pattern in their heads, you start to get these weird connections, these strange associations, like, say, doves and peace, or ancient lizards and, well, something much bigger. So, what is this psychological template? Well, think of it like a cookie cutter for the mind. It's a pre-existing shape that we use to form our understanding of new things. It's not a physical blueprint, but a mental one. It's the mold that takes the raw clay of our imagination and shapes it into something we can all recognize. And boom, here's the final product, the dragon. Notice it doesn't say, I am a biological creature. It proudly announces itself as a legend of fables. It exists not because of evolution or biology, but because that psychological template for a giant, scaly, fire-breathing reptile is just so powerful and so common in our minds. So here you can see the whole journey in one glance. You start with the dinosaur, a being defined by its physical expanse, and you end up with the dragon, a being defined as a legend of fables. That's the mental shift right there. From pure matter to pure myth. Okay, but this brings us to something even weirder, the strangeness of thought itself. I mean, if a mind can just invent a dragon, it shows that consciousness can create things that don't need to exist for survival. So what happens when that same consciousness just pops up in the most random places? I just love this. A donut having a full-blown existential crisis. And yeah, it's funny, but it's asking a really serious question. If consciousness isn't strictly necessary to, survive, then why does it even exist? Why on earth would a sugary pastry start wondering about the meaning of its own existence? And that's the deeper question the donut is getting at. We usually think of evolution as this practical, logical process, right? Traits develop for a reason. But what's the evolutionary need for a donut to be self-aware? It kind of forces you to step back and question the whole logic of why we think at all. And this perspective, from an egg, takes that thought even deeper. The egg sees consciousness not as some amazing gift, but as a total pain, a complication. It actually misses the good old days of simple inorganic chemistry, before all of this thinking and feeling messed everything up. It's almost like life itself was just a weird cosmic accident. So, We've gone from the real to the mythical and deep into the strange nature of thought itself. Now for the final piece of the puzzle, an echo in reality. What happens when these stories we make up actually start to affect the real world? And here they are, the real-world consequences. The dragonfly is just totally confused, stuck with a name that makes no sense. The fox is baffled by this reputation for being so witty. And the bear? It's pretty annoyed that its cuddly-looking panda cousin is ruining its tough guy image. These are real frustrations caused by our imaginary templates. So the big takeaway here is that these mental templates aren't just harmless stories we tell ourselves. No, they actually spill out of our heads and get slapped onto reality, creating a genuine burden for the very creatures we've built our myths around. It gets messy. And this brings us to our final, really provocative question posed by the fox. After this whole journey through legends and mental shapeshifters, it asks, should we really be spending our time building these empty certainties, these powerful but ultimately imaginary myths? Or would our time be better spent trying to understand what is actually objectively real? It's a challenge, really, leaving us all to wonder where the real value is, in the stories we create or in the reality we live.